Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sandy Frank's political podcast for a independent people's revolution against the corporate, fascist, elitist, uh, hegemonic state. I am your host, Sandy Frank, and today we're going to be talking about the publisher Wikileaks, and we're gonna be talking about how Wikileaks and leaking in general is what the one of the purest forms of journalism, uh, and this episode overall today will be about journalism and how to actually practice journalism and to practice journalism correctly and to practice journalism as a professional, uh, and of course we point at WikiLeaks as one of the, I won't say one of the only, but I'll say one of the forces that has been able to practice actual journalism and to get onto a global, widely recognized, uh, even among the people who don't consume good journalism, people who consume corporate media, which is not journalism. We won't even call the the brand of media uh, that the brand of media that the corporate media puts out as journalism. We won't even refer to it as that because it's not journalism. It's not anything. And we'll just get into what drama play, teledrama nonsense the television media is, and the uh, print newspaper journalism, online journalism. Uh, it's when we talk about corporate media, we're talking about propaganda, fascist propaganda that is coming out of the state. And when we say the state, we're talking about the world government that has been taken over by corporations. It's in no way journalism. So so if none of the if 90% of the media in the United States, I believe even more than 90%, but for the sake of argument, when we're talking about the Telecommunications Act of 1996, signed by Bill Clinton, that gave the consolidated the 90% of the media in the United States among 6 or 7 corporations. Uh, so this number, 90%, much higher, but 90% of uh, media in the United States is controlled by the corporate controlled state. It's corporate controlled state propaganda is what you get on CNN and NPR and the New York Times and Mother Jones and Breitbart and Fox News and Drudge Report and now the Alex Jones show is nothing but media, what we call it, corporate controlled state propaganda. Uh, we we and so we have very little actual places of where journalism can be actually practiced. I'm not talking about how the Intercept with Glenn Greenwald is so great. They do a lot of great things. I'm not crapping on the Intercept, but I'm saying that they are actually doing journalism, which is to be an independent, observing spectator and recorder and researcher, and to actually write stories and to create journalism that does the main thing that journalism is supposed to do, which is speaking truth to power. That's the point of journalism. There's no other point. Journalism stops being journalism when CNN has a 50-person panel, and MSNBC and Chris Hayes has a 50-person panel, debating white civilization. That stops becoming journalism immediately, because it's nothing. It's the Ellen show with Nazis. It's not speaking truth to power. It's not printing something that a person in power or a person responsible for something wouldn't want printed. It's so we can't even call these things journalism on MSNBC. And again, it's not to call the Intercept so perfect, because that's the problem a lot of people who worship corporate media have. They're looking for solace and absolution in news people they can implicitly trust, and that's not the point of journalism. The Intercept can make mistakes. WikiLeaks can make mistakes. Even WikiLeaks has a 100% with basically 100% verified information. So let's not say WikiLeaks, because as a publisher they're pretty spotless. But the Intercept isn't perfect. The Truthdig isn't perfect. Democracy Now isn't perfect. But they're even these news sources have since the during the election, some of these places kind of, I won't say shill for Hillary Clinton, but they would at some points disproportionately skew towards bashing Trump. And I can't even say the opposite thing. There's plenty of times where I was shitting on Trump, and especially when I was trying to get Bernie Sanders elected as the nominee, when I was working, phone banking and canvassing and getting information out for him. So we're talking about journalism and how what the corporate media is putting out doesn't even qualify as anything. It's just the Ellen show with Nazis. It's a ridiculous. When I talk about Nazis, when I talk about what's wrong with what the corporate media is putting out, is they're the complete liberal elite class kind of fascism as well. Yes, CNN paid Corey Lewandowski and a bunch of Trump surrogates, people who should never be allowed any type of pulpit. Shame on any news source for raising these kinds of people up. The Corey Lewandowskis, these thugs, these political brutes who they massacre people at fucking rallies, and now they're in control of our government, massacring people in 8 countries with wars that Barack Obama started. But Barack Obama was only able to start those wars because of the fake progressives and the Rachel Maddows and the John Olivers and the NPRs who said nothing while Barack Obama expanded 2 world wars to 8 and sold arms so many other places. He's funding. They are funding. So this is the complete fault of the control. It's just controlled opposition people. They always had this plan for Barack Obama to go into these places and then to normalize it for either Trump or Clinton who got in to make it normal that we're even in these places because of the fascism of Barack Obama and the people who own Barack Obama. And these are the people, by the way, who control the corporate media. These are extensions of the corporate-controlled Democratic Party and Republican Party and establishment government. These are. This is just it's not journalism. It's just an extension of a corporate-controlled political establishment. It's propaganda. Every last word of it. So, we talk about how we practice real journalism and what even real journalism is. There's obviously a lot of ways to practice actual journalism, and one way is leaking. And we talk about the importance of leaking and the moral imperative we have to speak truth to power. When John Podesta's emails came out, you saw a lot of reactionaries on MSNBC and CNN and the corporate media, saying this bullshit about these supposed journalists who were saying things like John Podesta's emails shouldn't have. There's this big ethical concern about when to leak and where to leak, and Chris Hayes just gets owned by a terrible shill. Chris Hayes, terrible person, very dangerous kind of person. Glenn Greenwald says, like, of course, yes, there's an ethical concern for leaking. Obviously, we don't leak anything. Jennifer Lawrence's sex tape is, journalists, of course, have to practice a code of ethics of, what is newsworthy. It's not what to leak, it's what is newsworthy is the main question, not, ooh, leaks, ooh, big drama that the corporate media creates. But it is what is speaking truth to power, which is journalism. And speaking truth to the responsible, and speaking truth to truth and facts and what we can prove. But Glenn Greenwald, says to Chris Hayes, of course there's an ethical discussion. But the bottom line is John Podesta is one of the most powerful people in our government. If not, the Podestas are one of the, they are the biggest lobbyists. They have, the most money and power. These are, many publications have some, ranked them, but, written about how powerful these people are. The first or second or third most powerful people in our government, in the United States government. So that, that puts them up, way up, if we're worldwide. So of course, you leak the most powerful person emails in the world, suspected of all this corruption and all of this pay for play. Of course you leak this person's emails when there's proof. But, to just defend, WikiLeaks even more, how WikiLeaks will, put out, as a publisher, will put out a lot of information, as in all of John Podesta's emails, which, they organized. And, of course you do this, especially as a publisher. What else do publishers do? But, if these emails proved what they did prove, which is so many very damning things, of course you release all the information you have in case some other, especially a publisher, for other journalists to go through and see if there's anything else. WikiLeaks isn't perfect. WikiLeaks is not perfect. Intercept is not perfect, but that's why you would release everything in case they missed something, in case they didn't have, they weren't informed on something they were talking about or reading about. And this is of course the one of the purest forms of what journalism is. These are these are firsthand documents proving crimes and a lot of crimes and potentially a lot more. Uh, so of course you release everything. Uh, uh, and of course the corporate media has no uh, has nothing to say or nothing to do by way of leaks. This is a self-preservative corporate media that is just trying to preserve for however ever long they can, because they know the jig is up. The corporate media, the people at the top understand this little game they've been playing is over, and that they'll soon lose their power. Well, not lose their power to the people, but they will. We will have justice in our world, and the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. And we shall have our just society that works for everyone. We will, very soon, if we're uh, if we're wise enough to stand up and do what must be done, which is revolution. Uh, so we talk about speaking truth to power, and the different ways of what that means. Of course, you have as well. I mean, to say journalism is just one thing is of course wrong. People will criticize me when I criticize people like Stephen Colbert. I have for they think I criticize him because he's a comedian, and that I think political satire is in a form of journalism. Of course, I think political satire and political cartoons and all there's I'm not going to put journalism in a bubble. Of course, everyone needs to be able to express themselves creatively, and I have no problems with this. The Colbert Report and the Daily Show, for the disagreements I have with them in politics and the fact that they're corporate shills, they're very funny comedians. Stephen Colbert on the Colbert Report, and I watched most of the Colbert Report when it was on. I disagreed with Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart greatly, but that was for everything they got wrong. They got some stuff right, and they were just very, very, very hilarious. Especially Stephen Colbert, for oh my goodness, those 9 years that character was just irresistibly hilarious. The things he did with it is just such a send up of the patriotic fascism that now reigns in the Oval Office, because Stephen Colbert put it there with his irresponsibleness and political bullshit. And it has nothing to do with Stephen Colbert having a funny character. That's not what put Donald Trump where he is. What put Donald Trump where he is people like Stephen Colbert lying and telling, bullshitting about what the Democratic Party and the establishment government were up to, denying the fraud, denying the killing, denying the economic fascism and the zero intent to create progressive policy, and so much more, poisoning people's water, destroying the environment. But so when we talk about journalism, we're not talking about just a big inky New York Times just shat in your lap. No, we're talking about everyone's ability to be able to practice journalism, and everybody's ability to get actual journalism, verifiable sources, things like this. But we want to have, because that's what we want journalism to be. When journalism is based on how people's creativity can express an actual news story and or political analysis based on the facts, the more creative it is, the more interested it gets other people into journalism. Stephen Colbert, for his not being journalism, he brought a lot of people into political into, not to say that everyone who ever watched the Colbert Report is not capable of journalism, but and not to say that nothing the Colbert Report ever did could be considered journalism. The problem why it's so corrupted is that it is so corporate controlled. But not to say that they never said anything that wasn't correct. But we we want to embrace everyone's creativity and everyone's. I mean, what is this? I consider this journalism, and this is a podcast. So I guess that means podcasts are, uh, journalism. In any way we can speak truth to power is, of course, journalism. Uh, so so many different ways, but people always think about journalism as classically a big inky New York Times, and yeah, print news stories are journalism, of course. Uh, Not what the New York Times does, because it's corporate controlled state propaganda and everything, and that is literally the part that makes it not journalism. If the New York Times, for all the correct information they put out there, it's not journalism and it is propaganda, because everything that it says, even the things that are correct, has to be run through a corporate controlled state who controls what it is. Of course, they put factual information in there. I'm not saying there's nothing factual inside of the New York Times. I'm not saying in the 9 years of the Colbert Report there was nothing factual on that. That would be a ridiculous thing for you to think that I'm saying. You would have to be crazy to think that that's what I'm saying. How would they trick people if they said the sky was green and the birds were in the ocean and the fish were in the sky? It wouldn't work. That's not how propaganda works. You have to fool people on very important levels. And therefore, of course, there needs to be actual information in there. But, of course. But, the, but we look at what the corporate media does. They basically just do the Ellen show with fascists. And again, I'm not against a fun talk show that people, independent people, being able to make fun talk shows like Ellen, which is corporate controlled. I'm not against talk shows. I'm against not doing journalism and putting out false government propaganda. Is what bothers me. The the but we watch these shows that model themselves off of Ellen, because they're just looking for ways to psyop people into running a 24-hour news cycle where they're just recycling the same two stories over and over again. This is literally what MSNBC and CNN are. They're just the two stories. You'll get a story about Donald Trump, and you'll get something else about Donald Trump that's also about something else. And that's all it is, and they just keep, when they do it for the hour-long shows, they'll do Trump something else, Trump something else, Trump something else, the same something else, and they'll do that 3 times in one show, and then they'll do that for 24 hours. They'd have a lot of reruns and things like that. But I was in a hotel recently for a little while on vacation, and because I don't have a cable subscription, and I got to watching CNN for a little bit of time, and it was just to actually watch it instead of just reading about what is being put on it because God, I could never watch fucking CNN, but to actually be watching that for a little while, just going around like it's a carousel, it's a merry-go-round of the same 2 stories for that day, Trump and something else to do with Trump. It's just a happy little merry-go-round. and it's, they just have a little talk show, and then they'll have some other different format kind of show, and then they'll have a show with a big panel, and then they'll have a show with a smart board, all this, and you can't really see how it works anymore. I could never buy MSNBC, even when like fucking Keith Olbermann was on. Oh god, that guy just made my skin crawl. I'm always I'm always happy that I always had like a healthy skepticism of what was coming out of that corporate media and what was coming, especially Barack Obama. Barack Obama never inspired me, and around the time of like 2006 and 2007 when he was becoming more widely known, uh, I would listen to what he said, and at this time, I wasn't completely against the Democratic Party and realizing what they were when I was like 14 years old, but just his speeches, they were always just so hollow and phony and corporate, Barack Obama always seemed really phony to me. And of course we learned why in 2000 and 2000, whenever we first learned that Citigroup was was having free range of his cabinet. I was like, okay, that might have been 2008 or 2009, because I know it was before he was inaugurated that this story came out, and you know the Jon Stewarts called anyone who was talking about it, the rally to restore sanity. Like, okay, Jon Stewart, go fuck yourself, you fucking fraud. Ugh, Jon Stewart, so dangerous corporate media, hilarious political satire. It makes me ashamed that he's not practicing journalism, but very funny comedian, nonetheless. Uh, but such a dangerous personality to be lying to people with. And I'm not for journalists having nice, cool personalities. You got Lee Camp. He's got a cool personality. Chris Hedges, and all of the actual journalists, they usually are pretty badass. And to speak truth to power, you need to be pretty bold. You need to be can't be afraid to be brazen, and not give a shit about some corporate shill getting in your face calling you a woman hater. We saw what Jordan Sheridan of the Young Turks. I have obviously I have my problems with the Young Turks, but Jordan Sheridan had that great moment speaking truth to Donna Brazil, who Jordan of course asks the newsworthy question that you ask around all of these corporate media shills, asking her about her outfit. He asks about the Podesta emails proving that she was corrupted and ridiculously corrupted for the establishment and for illegally raising up Hillary Clinton, cheating for Hillary Clinton, all these things. And he's putting it in her face, and she's automatically these Democratic establishment. Well, you're a woman hater, you're a woman basher, and you got to take it on the chin. Let it wash off you, and you got to keep practicing journalism. Of course they're going to smear you. Of course they're going to call you. Of course the corporate media is going to get a large group of people against you. This Democratic, Hillary Clinton loving, Barack Obama loving, brainwashed morons. The final group of people clinging on to their two little establishment pieces that really represent, narrowing down to about like 20% of the population are these Donald Trump clingers and these Hillary Clinton clingers, and all of the everyone in the world, especially, but everyone also in this country in very impressive numbers. A lot of people, even among people who tended to go right, are getting away from the establishment, getting into our independent people's movement to take down the corporate state, raise up a real press, to be the mass media press of our world, the one that actually considers facts and worships facts instead of money, worships journalistic integrity and speaking truth to power over profit. We're not talking about not holding something up like the corporate fascists hold up the corporate state. We're talking about holding up ideas about the worth of all people and all life of and all of existence to hold those things up and not just you know the money and power, but so actual journalism is of course a lot of things. Talk about political cartoonists and all of the think of all of the, every there's different, just think of like the New York Times and all of the different classical sections that they have. The obituaries are journalism, and editorials are journalism, and political cartoons are journalism, and the weather is journalism. Weather is very important journalism. If I'm living in the Northeast right now. Thank God we have a credible meteorology um, uh, media coming out of a lot of the corporate controlled media. Thank God they haven't taken that from us. Holy shit! Can you imagine if they were lying like Rachel Maddow or CNN or NPR? It's saying bright and sunny, 80 for the next few days. There's so much snow here. I just had to dig my car out for the gigantic snowbank. It took me an hour. I burned. It smelled like rubber trying to dig and then get the car out. Dig and then get the car out. Ugh, just miserable. But we people always say that a great example of the only type of real journalism practiced in corporate media is ESPN and the sports channels and the sports segments. And they're right. They're right. If you want to know how to practice credible journalism, that a political journalism, watch ESPN and watch how they break down sports. And that is the way journalism is supposed to be done. Could you imagine if the ESPN tried to say that the Patriots hacked the Super Bowl, and imagine if they fudged the numbers of a World Series game and said that the Yankees won instead of the Red Sox? People would burn down the country. There would be mass riots if anything like that ever happened. Anything like what the corporate media is bullshitting about the Democratic Party and wow Donald Trump when they put him there. Give me a break. If the corporate media put someone terrible on a team and then the team lost, there'd be heads rolling. There'd be people fired from those ESPN and Sports Center on the spot. Resignation effective immediately if there was anything like that ever going on in ESPN. Are you kidding? All the money on that? Are you kidding? Good God. So yeah, just watch ESPN for an hour and just imagine, like, replace the Super Bowl with like the Affordable Care Act, or the TPP, and imagine what you would be learning about those subjects if the the super detail oriented Sports Center people were talking about the same subjects in about politics. Put on ESPN, put on one episode of Sports Center, and then put on one episode of Rachel Maddow, and just don't think about subject and then look at the fucking difference. Okay? So if you want if you want an example of what journalism is, turn on ESPN and you'll find out exactly the way the rest of the corporate media should be functioning. Um, yeah, and we of course we see corporate media, the behemoth of corporate media, the BBC, uh, continuing to smear WikiLeaks and to discredit WikiLeaks, trying to paint Assange as a pedophile, completely ridiculous statements based on smear articles and lies. Oh God, this poor person, Julian Assange's life has been, ooh, utterly, utterly upended. The guy with children, very, very, very sad for this good person, for this good journalist. You know, we we the constant smearing of WikiLeaks for all of these years. It's been going on for so long. We forget how long this is. Julian Assange has been able to put all of this in the media, but uh, by because the corporate media is only putting him there to smear him, but they don't realize through smearing him they're also making him powerful, and that's Assange knows this, and that's why Assange is good at keeping WikiLeaks relevant with what is Vault 7. He's good at marketing, and it's important to play the capitalist's own game against them. But this is this person has been the the only actual journalist you'll hear about on any of these CNN or MSNBC shows is of course the one being smeared, and Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, and all leakers and all truth speakers. But we so many different ways to practice journalism, and when we create our independent journalism media outlet for the propaganda of practicing journalism and worshiping speaking truth to power, that is the propaganda we will be taking part in, the propaganda of the facts. But we want to understand that our big organization of media is, of course we want credible sources, but we want all people who are going to practice credible journalism to be able to do so, which is having the means to do it, which is creating a socialist state and a communist state. So we're all, if anyone wants to practice journalism and get their ideas out there, they have the means to. They have the means to the internet and recording devices and ability to travel for different stories and so many different things. And this is what we want our new world that we're going to create, a people's world. That's what we're going to create, a system of journalism that provides for actual journalists and not corporate shills. I'm not talking about $7 million paychecks for Glenn Greenwald. I'm talking about his ability to find the truth. Of course, no, we want to do away from corporate, we want our universal income. We want to be able to live within the means that make us healthy. Uh, but of course, we don't want anyone to be having $7 million a year while there are people freezing to death all over the Northeast with this snowstorm. Oh, goodness gracious! I wonder how many poor people have, and by poor I mean unfortunate, people have passed just in the last few days, just in the Northeast, just in these storms. So sad, so very sad. So we we and when we have the world, people's world government that we want, that doesn't just mean for journalism. If you want to do anything, you should be able to, outside of working some silly, stupid, ponderous public relations job at some useless company. You know, we want to do away with that meaninglessness, and begin to automate our society, which we know we can do easily in a short amount of time. And but and also to advance robotic science so it keeps us safe. You know, but just to have a society where people are free to follow their desires, uh, their dreams, to be corny about it. What would I do if I could pursue any type of education ever? I would go to the South Pacific, and I would study wildlife, and I would study marine life, and I would become a marine biologist of some sort, maybe. But just to be in nature, and to learn to respect nature. That's what I would be doing. I would be providing service through protecting our world and our environment. But we have nowadays, it's for profiting a system that is speeding out of control and will soon veer off the off the rails. No amount of 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 money pumped into the dying capitalist economy can save it from the destruction that is inherently built into it. Uh, and that giant collapse is on its way. That sudden pop of not just the housing market, but a major global encompassing collapse is on its way. And that's why this is the point of having systems that can practice actual journalism, to tell people that the economy is about to explode. It's all of these markets have accumulated so much well, but there is a collapse heading for major industries. But all of this could be fixed in a second if we simply changed our laws and changed the way our society is going about. Of course, it would be easy to rearrange our society in a very short time, but of course, we're being stopped by a small group of people who control the Democratic and the Republican Party, and are just trying to rob the system for however long they can. it is it's in our hands, really. If we're not going to stand up and take our government back from these lunatics, if we're going to respect some election system, well, then we're going to get the type of world we 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 get, because we didn't do anything about it. Uh, we but it's really time for us to create some sort of system of journalism that can counter the the political fascists, uh, and that's why journalism is so important. All kinds of journalism, any way that you could find to speak truth to power. If you can speak truth to power with the fucking drum solo, I'm I'm all for it. But if it's in service of the corporations, it then becomes propaganda, which is of course not what we want. And political cartoons are such a great example. Uh, we have a great episode of On Contact with Chris Hedges. Uh, the power of political cartoons with Mr. Fish, and Mr. Fish being the political cartoonist Dwayne Booth. Uh, I always found when you learn about the press in high school, and you learn about the news press during the early 1900s in the United States, and you then also learn about how political cartoons were such a big deal. They're very popular, and I always found that so interesting, that journalism can really be anything. It's not some stuffy Yale professor who makes millions of dollars and who lives on the Upper East Side. That this is corporatism and fraud and nonsense, but journalism is simply speaking truth to power, uh, and really nothing more. Uh, we we we're uh, yeah. So we're looking for dissidents. We're looking to be actual dissidents, not just a dissident in a Gap commercial, not just a dissident going to a George Soros controlled uh, protest that accomplishes nothing and has no actual ideas around it. But we're talking about how to actually be a dissident, and to not just to speak truth to power, but to change power through whatever means we can. Uh, this Trump regime is simply going out of control, and the Democratic elites are letting it go there, and millions of people are uh, just want some sort of cushy safety to go back to, some Barack Obama smiley face nonsense to tell them that their government is not completely evil, and they are not accomplices in that evil, because all of us are, every single one of us, you know every single and this is what sane progressive Deborah Lusignan says a lot. We're all, especially everyone in the United States of America and everyone in the West, but especially the United States, as a citizenry, we all have to take responsibility for what we have allowed through our decades long and centuries long decay from nothing. It's not like we were ever some. This is always how our country has been run. This is always how different countries of the world have been run, as if the corporate elites start wars and create economic fascism and all of these things, and the people have bread in circuses and pretend they're so patriotic and their country is so great, and you listen to some of these people at the protesting the. You see these town halls all over the country, and you see, especially with the Democratic ones who voted for Trump's appointees, you see the people just wanting to hear these people say that everything is okay and that I didn't vote for all of the appointees, so I'm a little better, and this is the way it works, and things like this, and people just wanting to hear, like, wanting to be made to feel as if everything is okay, which it never was. Not for 1 second under Barack Obama. Not for 1 second. You look at all the people he murdered. You look at all of the violence and displacement and poverty and killing he put out in the world. It was never okay. And I know when it hits you that Barack Obama wasn't the person you always wanted him to be, and that you were always told he was, and that you always have had in your head and preserved in your head that he was. It's a little jarring. It's very jarring when you wake up and you're finally speaking truth to power. It's quite jarring. In when Barack Obama was the president-elect and he was letting Citigroup have free reign over his cabinet picks, it was a transformative and not very pleasant, very transformative experience for me. It shook me, it rattled me that, we can work so hard to put someone somewhere and they're a liar. They're some two-faced sham artist who then everyone is going to spend the next 8 years, everyone, this quote-unquote progressives and liberals and anti-war people and pro-human rights people, you fucking kidding, feminists, give me a break. People standing up for race rights while we're bombing 8 Middle Eastern countries because of the color of their skin, because of lies that people want to believe about Islam and quote-unquote terrorism. Okay, again, 9/11 was a false flag attack by Dick Cheney and the deep state and the global corporate elites. It was not brown people in caves with walkie-talkies and pizza cutters and box cutters. Give me a fucking break. Oh yeah, so the top part of the World Trade Center, which didn't weigh as much as the bottom, this big huge steel created part, it's falling at free fall speed through it. Yeah, okay, physics. Yeah. Listen, I didn't do too well in physics in high school, and I'm not a numbers guy, but when someone stupid like me can see right flatly in the face that these defy the laws of physics, and of course advanced demolition explosives were of course used. Give me a fucking break. Are you kidding? When a dummy like me could see it, the level of brainwashing that's going on in the corporate media. You know it, but yeah, journalism is a lot of different things, but one thing it is not is corporate-controlled state propaganda, and that's what this episode was about. And so let's just kind of wrap up here. We have Julian Assange being the example of an actual journalist, and Glenn Greenwald and Chris Hedges, and we have Rachel Maddow and John Oliver and Tom Ashbrook and Judith Miller and all of these corporate shills, Joy Reid, Anderson Cooper, a lot of them, and Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity. All of them. These are the enemy. These are the people who are allowed to put out lies day after day, night after night, and not face anything for it. So it's it's pretty ridiculous. So we need to kind of stop this from going on. But yeah, so let's see. We will see you in the next one.